Hello, my friend, and welcome to the 418th episode of the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. Today we have Mr. Stephen M. Lowisz. We're going to talk about automation does not replace humans. And can I get an amen on that? We're going to get into what he calls the 3 T's and what I say to make every sale. So we kind of sprinkled that in. His T3 framework is what he has developed, helping companies get their acts together to onboard the right people, because it's more important than ever, despite or maybe because of everyone's clamoring for the easy button, the artificial intelligence, the chat bots, the overseas assistants, which today, as I record this intro, I came face to face with. I woke up and see this little greeting, this invitation, this salutation, solicitation on LinkedIn. This guy from the UK, so I know English is his native tongue, but it was clearly some cut and paste hack job from an overseas assistant from the Philippines or India. It was just not good. And I replied to him, or his machine, or his assistant, and an even worse reply came back, just botched grammar, just not good. So I had to take a screenshot, and I blocked his name out and his face, but use it as an example today of what not to do, how not to be an idiot online, how to bring more humanity back to the process. Sales and marketing is still person to person. People say, oh, it's just business, don't take it personal. BS. All business is personal. I'm trying to close a deal. You say no to me. Yeah. Even when I was an employee, right? Sometimes the application was not right. It was not a fit. There was something else better. Okay. But when we were a fit and we lost a sale, I took it personally. So, right, wrong, or indifferent, that's how I took it. And I still believe, when companies do business, certainly if you are an entrepreneur, if it's your own business, their business may write it to your business, but then somebody over there signs it, and then you sign it, or some human at your company signs it. So bring back humanity into your sales cycle and your processes. I guarantee if you do that more in 2020, figure out how to use automation to do the busy work, but the meaningful work needs to still be human to human. All right? I promise you it'll make a difference. I'm working with people right now in some tough niches, and it is all outbound calls and personal communication, and it's making the difference. If they allow me to share the numbers here in the next month or so, I'll let you know. And I'm sure I don't have to convey or relay their contact info or the exact industry, but being human works. I promise you. All right. And we're going to be getting into that in today's episode. And it's something that I get into extensively in the 30-day sales growth program. I've raised the prices on it. I am interviewing an operations/marketing manager to come on full time to help me get the word out in a big way in 2020. And so what will probably happen is that course will go up, or we might keep it the same and then just create a higher level of, as that community grows, then it's harder for me to spend more time with those people. So we'll create a second level, but those that are in now, when we create the second level, will be grandfathered in and offered a kind of a founder's rate, if you will, for the next level. So it's the community, the program still has a 1-year money-back guarantee. It's a 1-year membership, but it's still super cheap. It's less than your cable bill. So come jump in, okay? 30daysalesgrowth.com. 41 on-demand videos. I just made just yesterday, updated one of the templates, the spreadsheets that I've used and shared to help you figure out your ratios and your numbers for conversations, for appointments kept, proposals closed, and it's in 2 different formats, so you can figure out if you put in your targeted earnings, it'll give you your activity. If you put in your activity, it'll show you how much you're going to earn. So I'm always adding to the community, and you get access to all of that immediately, plus live weekly calls. Right now we're doing them on Mondays at 10 a.m. Pacific. So come join us, all right? 30daysalesgrowth.com. Go sign up and then come back and listen to this interview with Stephen. Stephen M. Lowisz, all the way from near Detroit, Northville, Michigan. Is that right, man?
It is. It's like halfway between Detroit and Ann Arbor.
Nice.
Down about here, if you're watching, where your thumb is.
Everybody puts the hand up, but the thumb up. All right, man. Well, welcome to Sales Podcast, man. Are you cold yet? Is it cold up there?
Oh, yeah, it's awful. We're getting straight up January weather right now. We had a blizzard just the other day. It sucked.
I tell everybody it's so cold, I got socks on with my flip-flops. But I digress, man. That was a previous life. I was a meteorologist in the Air Force. But people aren't listening to us for that, all right? So what the heck is this, man? I got to get it right. Qualigence. Is that right? Yes. Qualigence.com?
Exactly. It's like quality and intelligence smashed together.
I see what you did there. Growing and scaling companies around the globe through the T3 framework. What the heck is that, man?
Tactics, talent, and tech in that order. I know it sounds really sexy, right? And then it's super basic.
All right, hold on. I'm writing this down. Tactics, talent, and tech.
Yes.
The tactics, talent, and tech framework. All right. Hey, I like it. I've been working on things like it's, if you're sitting still, you're dead, right? And I've tried to figure out like my little Venn diagram, right? And it's like sales, marketing, and tech. It's like I speak those 3 languages, and kind of that Venn diagram, right? So you're doing it with tactics, talent, and tech. So how'd that come about?
So I used to work at Qualigence a ways back for about 5 years, and we were building out basically sales and marketing teams for companies like Intuit, ESPN, a lot of the big tech guys, right? What we saw is that the people strategy was completely irrelevant from the growth strategy, and the tech was kind of thrown in there to accelerate things, but there wasn't a clear picture on what or why and how. So you have these 3 different strategies, right? Tactics, talent, and tech, or if you just want to call it strategy, people, and automation and so forth, they're very disjointed. So the division that I run over at Qualigence, our performance solutions division, is focused on bringing those 3 together, making sure they're aligned properly, and actually having analytics and technology to back it up. Most people just say, hey, I want to grow, and it's kind of like throwing ass in a seat, and that's it. It doesn't make any sense.
Right. So do you mean to say when the companies tell us that people are our most valuable asset, are they just paying lip service to that? Is that what you're saying?
They are. If your biggest investment in your people is a foosball table and beanbag chair, so you have the cool startup feel, you don't give a shit about your people.
Foosball is of the devil.
Nothing wrong with it. But if that's all you're doing to invest in people and make sure that, here's the way that I put it. You're a big HubSpot guy, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. HubSpot will work for you every single day, all day after you buy it. You can optimize it, of course, but it's going to work for you consistently. People don't. Yet we treat people like HubSpot. It doesn't work out well. You're not just going to buy a person, meaning have them come on board, pay a salary, and all works out perfectly because now you have a button seat and that is it. It doesn't work.
Right.
So I do it primarily through the lens of sales, growth. I mean, that's my background, right? That's what I want to focus on. But really that can be applied across the board.
Dude, sales is all overrated, man. I'm changing this to the spam podcast. It's all artificial intelligence and chat messages these days.
It is. And look, if you use automation, here's what people don't get. And it sounds like I'm preaching to the choir here. Automation is an accelerant meant to help improve the human experience. It's not meant to replace it. The second you try replacing it, you shot yourself in the foot and you look like every other spammer.
Yeah. Well, I get it all the time. Just this morning, right? I hop on LinkedIn, I'm getting ready for our interview, look you up. We were not connected. So accept my connection request or I will
Already
delete this
done.
interview. All right. I will not be publicly shot down like that. And I look at my messages, right? And so I've told people this over the years. I stumbled across this thing accidentally. There was a sales guy actually in the UK, and he had this little red phone icon in his name. And so I did the same thing. I was like, hey, I like that. It kind of, stands out. But the added benefit that I've learned is that when people use screen scrapers to get your info and automation tools, that little phone icon is considered part of my first name.
Yep.
And so I get these messages. Hi, hello, Wes, red phone, comma. So I know they're automated, right? And so I'll accept most people on LinkedIn. There's like some overseas people that, they're selling LEDs out of China. Like they're not going to help me, but most people I'll accept. And then, so this person who shall remain nameless, so here's a little bit about me. I fix broken messages. This can be in any format: networking, video, speeches, webinars, or media training. So I replied, how well does this automated LinkedIn farming work for you? So we shall see what she says.
My guess is no response. And actually, so I go by Stephen M because there is another Steve Lowisz in the marketplace.
Oh.
So little differentiator there, right? But the second I see that M in your LinkedIn message, I immediately know it's a sales pitch, number one, and it was automated, number two.
Oh, so M is part of your first name on LinkedIn?
Yep.
Yep. Smart.
I
thought you were like from the 90210 crowd, because it was right about then, like in the early 90s, when everybody started using middle names. Did you notice that? But I digress. Cary Grant didn't have. I don't even know what Cary Grant's middle name. James Dean, what was his middle? I don't know.
I can't help you there, man. That's a Google.
But it's good to differentiate. So all right. So tell me that again. Automation, because that was a quotable, and it's Monday morning. I'm going down rabbit holes. Automation does not replace. What'd you say?
I don't know how I worded it exactly.
All right, I'll listen to the recording, but it was a good one. Everybody go back and listen to that. Hit rewind.
The general idea is automation isn't meant to replace people. It's meant to enhance the human experience.
Yeah, right. Yeah, amen. Like I just say, I mean, good marketing of a bad product will just accelerate your demise, right? And similarly, bad marketing of a good product will accelerate your demise as well, or at least it's a slow, painful death into obscurity.
If everyone keeps treating LinkedIn the same way, and I will even go as far as saying there are right ways to do LinkedIn automation. Like I'm not totally opposed, but you better do it right.
Yeah, for sure.
And if things keep going how they are, LinkedIn's going to be the next email. Your 80 or 90% open rates that get 20 and 30% response rates, maybe higher, are going to turn into email, which is absolutely pathetic.
Yep. So what do big companies get wrong that our smaller companies that are listening can learn from their mistakes?
What do big companies get wrong? So couple of things. I think when you look at, here's our big spiel, if you will, or here's why we do what we do. When you look at the typical sales and marketing metrics, KPIs, etc., they're all reactive, right? What already has happened. We want to judge a salesperson based on how many calls they made, or how many opportunities, which actually that one's a little bit more legitimate, how many opportunities, right? But it's basically, let's quantify things for the sake of quantifying. And it's all retroactive. When in reality, most people get things wrong from the hiring process alone. Yes, past performance and basically what we call the briefcase of somebody is important, right? Their resume, experience, past benchmarks, whatever, it can all be helpful. But that's typically all we're going by. Then we give these people reactive metrics that we need to hit. So by the time we realize things are going wrong, things have already gone wrong, right? There's no predicting. You're playing catch up now, and you just wasted a ton of money. And at the SMB level, it's going to be even more important, more of an impact. So I think the big piece that people get wrong is they put a butt in seat. Once again, I'm not an HR guy either. I'm a sales guy, for the record. But even from a sales perspective, you put the wrong person in the seat. You weren't able to predict the success of that person. You have no idea how they're going to perform. You're just going in and saying, yeah, looks like a good resume. They have some sales experience. Boom, bring them in. I don't care if we're talking Intuit, Citrix, Cisco, or the startup in Australia. Everyone's doing the same garbage.
So, all right, there's a couple of questions out of that spring to mind. I mean, number one, I've always told people, salespeople at least, that your number one job is to prospect. Mm-hmm. And so making calls, making connections, doing that outreach, at least they're in control of that, right? I mean, we're sitting here recording this on a Monday morning. I can control, did I binge, eat, and drink all weekend or not? So I'm ready for the day. Do I get into the office early? Do I do my homework? Am I ready to go at 8 o'clock or whatever? So I can control that. Or I can control the activities that I do. But it sounds like what you're saying, if we can figure out if somebody's just if they're a turkey or an eagle, right? You're saying people are pretty much hiring turkeys. And so it doesn't matter if you give them the right script, the right list, whatever, they're just not going to do it.
I think it's measuring effort instead of results, right? So yes, do I pay attention to calls made, et cetera? Yeah, a little bit. But ultimately, here's one of the big pieces, though, that I think most sales managers and leaders get wrong. They manage the effort, not the results. Let's say LinkedIn's my number one source of leads personally. Not all automated, very small portion of that, but connecting, talking to people, networking, et cetera. LinkedIn's my number one. Should I be penalized if I'm going and using calls? Well, the common sense answer is no. If I'm being tracked for calls and ignoring calls because what works over here is obviously doing something for me, I shouldn't be penalized, but that's how most organizations operate.
Okay, hold on. Excuse me. So you're saying if you're using LinkedIn and it's working, like the typical company would say, you're supposed to make 50 dials a day and you only made 5. So you're not a good boy.
What was the desired result from those 50 calls? That's what I want to know.
Right.
And I don't think that's what most people track. It's, right. Did you follow the script? Which that's right there. It's debatable on whether you should be using scripts. I'm typically not a fan of scripts. Are you following the script? Did you make enough calls? Did you have enough conversations? Those I don't think are the right metrics to follow. What do you have? How many meaningful conversations did you have? I can book my calendar up tomorrow with a ton. Let's say there's 8 hours in the day for those that work, normal 40-hour weeks, 8 hours in the day. That's 16 calls that I could have. Doesn't make any of them qualified. So I would be tracking how many people are you qualifying a day? How many meaningful conversations led to that qualification? Where are they at in the sale? In the sales process? Those aren't things that most people track, but that's once they're on board. What about before they're on board? How do you know you're hiring the right sales rep? Usually it's, well, they said they did this in their quota back at their last job over here. They look pretty good. Yeah, let's give it a try. And then you want immediate results within 30, 60, 90 days, especially at the SMB level. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a jacked up process. That's why sales has one of the highest churn rates in the marketplace.
So, all right, we're going to start duking it out, man. Are you ready? I'm giving you the warning just to be polite.
Well, when I realized that you're a HubSpot guy and I'm a Salesforce guy, I figured we would.
Salesforce is fine for big companies, but man, don't even get me on that tangent. So I understand conceptually what you're saying, but I've always told people, sales managers, that you manage activity and pay on results. Because typically they're like, all right, welcome aboard. You know, you have a $1.2 million quota. That means $100,000 a month. Go get them, cowboy.
Mm-hmm.
And so by the time they're at, 60 grand after the first month and 120 grand the second month and a week left in the quarter when they should be at 300 grand, they're at 180. Everybody starts freaking out and screaming and yelling. Whereas if they did the right activity, just like exercising, right? If I choose a unsweetened iced tea instead of a Coke every day for every meal, and have an apple instead of a piece of cake, that activity, that right activity, is going to add up. So I'll hit my 90-day weight loss goal. Right. So I mean, there's right activities that have to be done. Even with you, you're having LinkedIn conversations, LinkedIn connections. So you're still doing the right activity. They're just different activities than maybe what a traditional old school, boiler room might have you do.
So there's results prior to, so let's talk sales funnel. The bottom of the sales funnel is revenue. The top is cold calls in this scenario. I'm going to reverse engineer it, not go straight to the top. How many opportunities do you have? Is it that you really suck at closing, or is it that you needed more prospects to begin with? I'm not of the mindset of, if you suck at closing, it just means you need to go make that many more calls. Let's go figure out how to train you properly and get some of these deals closing a lot quicker. You can put all the effort in that you want, but if you only have a 10% conversion rate on all of your deals, no matter how much work you put in, you have a limitation on how many hours you can put in a week. I'm a guy that does 80 to 100 very, very normally, and you can only have so many so many closed deals at a 10% conversion rate, right?
Right.
So I'm going to start to reverse engineer it. And as I keep backing it up, okay, so their deals, they're closing at 60, 70%. Man, that's awesome. Okay. Why don't they have enough in the works? Are they not following up? Is it that they are not getting the decision maker on the line, but once they do, their closing rate's awesome? Why are they not getting enough opportunities? Then, of course, yes, I'm going to keep backing that up the funnel towards, do they have the right calls? Are they making enough calls? But I think that's what we jump to instead of the result far too quickly.
Gotcha. So when you take on a new client, is the first thing you work on with them is their hiring practices?
Depends on their situation. Typically, it's an audit of what they have going on, and it results in documentation on, look, if this was me, here's the crap I would fix. And then hopefully, obviously, they hire me to help them fix it, right? So it's an audit. I typically talk to their team, figure out, okay, what are their real sales skills, abilities, et cetera? What systems are they using? What does the data say? Where are the metrics, et cetera? If their team's coachable, then no, we're not going to go towards, let's just go bring on new people. We're going to train them. Let me give you an example. I had a guy, SaaS company. He had 2 salespeople, 7% conversion rates. Like that's atrocious. How would you like to know that 93% of your time is a complete and utter waste? He didn't even have the data, though, or the systems to tell him, hey, you're losing money on these 2 people every single second that you are paying them. Here's the tricky part, though. When you look at the data, they had plenty of opportunities. They had plenty of conversations. They couldn't close for anything. It's not going to help to go swap out new people. I had a hunch that this guy probably sucked at managing and leading his sales team. In 8 weeks, we got them to 62%, and it added a ridiculous amount of revenue into their pockets. Everyone was thrilled. You come to me and you say, hey, I have 6 really good sales reps, but every time we try to add number 7, we just completely and utterly fail and we can't figure out why. Yeah, now that's a little bit different conversation.
So did you help that guy become a better sales manager? Like, was he the problem?
Oh, he was absolutely the problem.
Did he wreck it? Did you tell him straight up you're the problem, or did you kind of massage it? Was he coachable?
He was coachable. You will find I'm a very direct and blunt person.
Yeah.
There was no fluff in there. It was, look, So number one, the two people needed training. There's no doubt about it. It's not
Sure.
that he just mismanaged.
Well, we all need training.
Yeah, totally. They needed training. But what's interesting is to get from 7% to 62%, I didn't actually interact with the team in this case. I just taught him how to better coach and manage his own team.
Right.
So absolutely, he was the problem. And thankfully, he was coachable. If you have somebody that is very arrogant, right? Here's what I will tell you. And I tell this to all of my customers. I suck at everything in life, top to bottom, except sales. And yet there's always going to be better in sales. If you have the head of sales that comes in and says, guys, we're doing the best, you can't do any better, go suck an egg. All right, I don't really have an interest in working with you.
Yeah, for sure. So were you coaching that manager with the team? Like, were you helping like lead sales meetings, or were you like a little, birdie sitting on his shoulder, or were you, coaching him and letting him go and like, measuring and kind of coaching from the outside? You know what I mean?
So actually it was a unique case. Normally I'm much more hands-on, and in some scenarios, it's almost a fractional head of sales, like you just kind of mentioned, right? In this case, I was working with this is a small business that we're talking about.
Sure.
I was working with the CEO. It was teaching him the sales frameworks. I'm a big framework guy, not so much script. I was teaching him the sales frameworks that I use, teaching him how to better manage his team, but it was working with him directly one-on-one. I didn't actually get access to his own team, and yet he still got those results.
Sure.
It's a very exaggerated example of a bad manager, and yet I think it's a really good one.
Right. So let's talk about, you ready? Round 2, man. The gloves are coming off now, damn Salesforce people. Good grief.
Bring it.
Scripts. I personally am a fan of scripts.
Okay.
Especially for new people. Especially when you're onboarding someone. I mean, you've got to, if you just let them kind of wing it, and a new person, you give them a framework. Maybe it's too broad. Maybe they need a little more guidance. But it's like, until the old adage is like, you have to learn the rules before you can get good enough to break the rules. Right. And like all of life is a script. I mean, we're walking around just with scripts. Hi, Stephen. How are you? Stephen says, fine, Wes. Thanks for asking. How are you? I'm good too. How's the weather in Detroit? And you say, right. I mean, we're all, so would you say maybe that did scripts play a role early on until you got good and this kind of became second nature, and now you can kind of work in that framework?
Are we talking about high ticket, low ticket, inbound, outbound? Give me some context. Or are you saying across the board scripts work?
Certainly the lower the tickets, I think the more scripts work.
Sure. I'll agree with that.
Obviously, even a framework, I think, is a nice way of saying it. It's a script. It's a play. We're all on stage. Even if it's high ticket, if I'm selling, freaking aircraft, right? I'm selling Boeing, and there's a script, there's a dance, I have to dress a certain way. I have to act a certain way. I mean, okay, each scenario, of course, it's unique. Am I meeting them at their place? Or they come into the factory? Or are we at dinner? Are we at golf? There's still a certain way to act, or I'm going to blow it. So,
of course, there's always expectations. But to me, a framework is basically, look, here's the expectations that I have of you, that you have of me. Here's the box we're going to play in. But you have full freedom to play within this box. So,
yeah, but there is a box.
Yeah, sure. When I think of script, I'm thinking word for word. When you pick up the phone, this is what you're going to say. Framework to me is, look, here's kind of what you want to hit on. Here's the general process, but whatever spin, flavor, personality, twist to it you want to put on it, you go for it. People buy emotionally. You can't connect with somebody if you're reading off a script. You cannot possibly have an authentic relationship with somebody if it's scripted. It doesn't work.
See, that's where I digress, man. It's like, I always ask people, like, how much money did The Rock make last year? All right, over $60 million. And what does he do for a living? He reads a freaking script, right? You can't tell me watching Schindler's List, people weren't connecting. That was a script. Okay. Now, sometimes they vary it and, they modify it from the original. So certainly internalize it, make it your own, put some life into it. Cause hi, is Steven in? Hi, Steven. Yes, I am calling from the Sales Whisperer Company and we help. No, of course. But if somebody's new, I don't know. I got to give them something to say until they can let their personality kind of blossom. Once you give someone a framework, I don't know. In my opinion, you start somebody new, I'm giving them a script. Once they perform, then I let them kind of evolve from there.
So I will give somebody a written prompt for picking up the phone and how do you get through the gatekeeper or, okay, you're leaving a voicemail. Yeah, have a prompt, right?
Okay.
I don't have an issue with that. When we're talking about, let's say you're sitting down, it's an enterprise deal. You finally got this person to commit to a meeting. In that meeting, how many prompts or how many pieces to the script are you giving them? Me, it's going to be like, here's a general outline. 80% of the call, we're going to focus on the problem, pain, et cetera, et cetera. We're really going to dive into what really matters, why it does, the impact it has, et cetera. 15% of the call, we're going to focus on the possibility that they're really trying to aim for, why it matters, the impact that it has. 5%, here's a path. And now the path is either, okay, sign up, or if it's a bigger sale, okay, let's go loop in these other people, have a further call, et cetera. I'm going to give prompts to help transition somebody from problem and pain to, okay, here's the possibility. But anything in that 80%, when they're focused on, let's say, problem and pain, they have free reign to say whatever they want, however they want, and figure it out. And I'm okay with my salespeople failing initially to figure out what works for them. When I started in sales, I had two people that I really looked up to. They both were doing multiple millions in professional services revenue every single year, killing it. And I would take turns trying to like mimic one and then the other. And I'd write script. I wasn't given a script, but I'd write scripts based on what they were saying, et cetera, et cetera. And I completely and utterly failed every single time. About 18 months in, I was like, screw it. Apathy took over. It was like, when I get on these calls, I'm going to fail anyways. And something started to click. I started to close deals because it was a more authentic conversation, not me trying to read something to hopefully get your money. It's a different dynamic change.
Right. Well, you have to learn the rules so you know how to break them. I equate like to jujitsu, right? My instructor has done this for 35 years. He's not thinking about anything. He's just, whatever you give him, he just takes and destroys you with it. Right? But he has drilled 1,000 moves 1,000 times. So he learned the script. He learned where to put his left leg, his right leg, his left hand, his right hand, his left elbow, his right elbow, his hips. Is he on his side? But, he's mastered it all. And so now he's an artist. But it didn't come by just, well, go out and roll. And you know what? It'll come to you. It's like, oh, hell no. Do the drill. Do the drill until you don't think about the drill. Because even in your case, like at the enterprise sale, I think back to a good friend of mine, kind of been a mentor of mine going back to 2000. Great salesman, sells at the very highest levels. He's not reading a script. He doesn't have a notebook, blah, blah, blah. He's not doing that. He's like my jujitsu instructor for sales. But he is very much, he's in control of the situation. I guess because he has failed. He's failed more times than most people have even tried, just like my instructor. So do you think it just becomes, maybe it's that curse of knowledge, right? We've just done this for so long. Like I don't read any scripts. I don't have any scripts anymore. I sell scripts. I sell flashcards to overcome objections, but really it's just to get people unafraid, right? Give them a little courage to pick up the phone. Like, here, you have the tools you need to not look like an idiot. You'll win some sales with this. Then you'll get some confidence, and then you'll blossom and can roll with it. So we kind of talking about the two sides of the same coin.
Yes and no. So am I limited compared to you, limited jiu-jitsu experience? I wouldn't equate them to the same thing. How do you let someone fail if they are set on a number of calls and they have to read it exactly? How can you hold them responsible for results?
Typical companies, that's why I say manage activity and pay on results. Most companies, when they hire, they get somebody with a decent resume, somebody that has sold, that maybe they won't sell, but hey, that's what they do. And they just give them a desk, give them a quota, say, go get them. Whereas they should say, look, we sell into the healthcare space. Here's the 5 key reasons we're different. Here's our unique selling proposition. Reach out to CIOs, IT directors, and if you have to, the actual technicians. If you reach the CIO, say this. IT director, say this. Hands-on person, say this. If you reach the gatekeeper, say this to get an appointment. Boom, boom, boom. And I walk them through. Most people, they haven't done that. They've just sold. The owner is more passionate than the salespeople, and they just through pure effort and energy and force of will, they grow. The commission salesperson won't have that fire in their belly that the owner will. Then the owner gets mad and like, you suck. I had that territory at that hospital. They bought $1 million from me last year, and you haven't even sold $500,000. You suck.
Yep.
Like, they're not giving them the tool. Like, what do I say? So I was in 2008. I actually got recruited back into high tech. I just started the Sales Whisperer. I knew the economy was getting bad, and got recruited back to this Boston company through some friends. Sweet job. I mean, making a crap ton of money. I couldn't say no to it. And this guy, he was the former CIO of a mega financial institution that everyone would know. And after 2 weeks of training, he came and spent like an hour with us. And I remember saying, hey, boss, I'm supposed to call you, right? You, in your previous job, that's the target. High-ranking CIOs at big companies. Yes. And I said, how do I reach you?
Mm-hmm.
He couldn't tell me. After 2 weeks, nobody in that company. Now, I knew all the speeds and feeds. I knew the gigahertz and the gigabits and the gigabytes and the throughput and the blah, 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 and ATM and Sonnet and whatever. I didn't know how to, and nobody could tell me what to say to reach that decision maker, to set a firm appointment, to have a good demo, to get a proposal, to close the sale. That has stuck with me ever. It's been 11 years now, and it's still stuck with me. And we were all let go like 6 months later when the whole financial collapse came, which I saw coming. But we made a lot of money for 6 months, and they're like a fraction of themselves.
So it also depends on what level of training you're doing, though. So let me put it this way: how quickly, with a new sales team, how quickly are you going to have a new rep on the phone?
Yeah, and it depends on the company. Is it a complex sale? Like at that company, they weren't putting us on the phone for weeks, till we learned this complex product, which I think was a mistake. I could sell that right now. I could sell damn near anything. You give me a couple of hours, give me an overview, let me ask some questions. I could come up with something, but I digress.
So I think most companies have the biggest issue with, look, you need to learn our solution, and that's about it, right? How are we better? What are the features? Can you do a demo? Let's say we're talking software, whatever, right? And that's about as far as they go. People don't buy that. You sound like every other sales rep. People buy because you, number one, have an authentic connection with them, which leads across multiple other tangents, right? People have a BS radar. When you tell people what they don't want to hear, they actually want more of it, et cetera, et cetera. We can go into that. The other piece is, what is the impact that this is really going to have? Let's say you're looking at a CRM, HubSpot, theoretically, I know enough HubSpot to be dangerous. People don't care that it's a seamless marketing automation / sales automation software. There's a bunch of them. You're wearing a shirt for Nimble, right? They have some of the same capabilities. Every CRM is going to have some of the similarities across the board. What separates them? It's not the script. It's not the features necessarily. That's going to play a part. I'm not going to say it's null and void, but it's the sales rep being able to communicate the impact that this software can have on their life or on their business and connect that to their life. It's not, hey, Wes, I have the best CRM. It's, Wes, what are you really trying to get out of this? Why does that matter? What have you already done to overcome that? If you want to create a script of questions for a sales rep, I'm good with that. It's all the answers and the rest of the dialogue that I'm not a fan of.
Yeah, and maybe we're starting to split hairs because it's going to go in some different directions per se. But if you're asking the right questions, you can control that conversation. Like in mine, hey, Steven, this is a sales call. May I take 20 seconds of your time? Tell you why I'm calling. You decide if we ever speak again. Yeah, go ahead. You got 20 seconds.
Yep.
All right. So I'm going to get right into it. I help I help, it depends on who I'm calling. Small businesses, large enterprise. Am I talking to the CEO / founder, or VP of sales, whatever, right? I help, sales leaders, salespeople they're frustrated with salespeople making constant excuses. They're upset, they're concerned, they're angry, ups and downs. But I don't suppose any of those are important enough to you, to spend a couple more minutes discussing, are they? You bet. All of them. Well, all right. I mean, there's only a few ways they can answer. All right. And we'll say, you know what? I hear that all the time, man. If you had to pick one, if you had to start on one to fix this month, what would it be?
Yep.
So that's a script. That's a script I've said since 2006. And I've sold real estate with that. I've sold financial services with that. I've taught people to sell photography with that. You name it.
I don't have an issue with that. It's when you're actually having the full conversation.
Yeah. You can't script 100%, but it's probably more, it's certainly important in the beginning, probably for your SDRs, your outbound sales calls. Cause I'm a big believer. It's like exercising. When I got serious about exercising, my wife and I did that Body for Life way back in 2001, Bill Phillips. And they were all about scripting, right? You did upper body on one day, cardio the second day, lower body the third day, cardio the fourth, and started again on upper body. And you had 6 meals a day, and one day, ours was Sunday, was your cheat day. So because I knew exactly what I was going to do and exactly what I was going to eat and when, we stuck with it and had great results. I feel like salespeople, they show up at their desk and it's just 87 Outlook reminders that says, make follow-up call. Call number 2, 3, 5, 18. I mean, what do I say? Hey, Steven, this is Wes over at Sales Whisper. Yeah, man, I'm just checking in. Yeah, I haven't heard from you, happy Thanksgiving. Yeah, anyway, man, yeah, I'm just checking in. Let me know if you got that quote. Okay. Or, I'm gonna be happy to, I don't know. I mean, I could talk with my manager maybe, about that warranty. That's what most people do on the phone. It's terrible.
So again, I don't disagree that it works for voicemails. I mentioned that earlier. I'm totally good with that. The issue that I have is when you have a full length conversation and you're trying to communicate your value prop and the impact and the ripple effect that your solution could have on their life and their business, et cetera.
Yeah.
And that's scripted. That to me, you can't have, based on my experience, anecdotal.
Yeah.
You can't have an authentic relationship that's scripted out. You can have a general sequence of, look, here's the structure of the call that I'm going to roughly have. but I'm going to give my sales reps the freedom to do whatever the hell they want. If someone wants to pull the, hey, Mr. West, thank you for the time, good for them. I can't do it. Doesn't work for me. It's like, hey, what's up, man? How's it going?
Sure.
Freedom to me is a big piece of that. But so okay, let's say that we both agree on the training, et cetera, et cetera. How do you know a sales rep is actually going to be any good? Before you even hire them, what are you looking for out of them?
I'm looking for someone like you to help me bring them on board. I'm a big fan of assessments. And I mean, for salespeople, I put them through the ringer when I work with companies.
So here's and this applies across the board, but specifically in sales. And this is why I ended up merging back with Qualligents to build out this division. Let me give you a little anecdote. So I hired, when I was running 21 Late, my former company, when I was running it, I hired the number 2 sales rep at VMware. Okay. One of the largest software companies in the world. We were delivering for primarily B2B SaaS companies, selling enterprise level software, right? You think this guy would knock it out of the park. And yet I canned him in 6 weeks. Now, in reality, this is a really exaggerated example, so I should have seen part of the problem ahead of time. But what ended up happening is we were a six or 7 person company at the time. We were small, we were fast, we were nimble. There were always fires. It was a pure startup environment, right? Let's go. And we're a startup dealing with startups. He was used to a massive, massive organization with a ton of structure, ton of stability, consistency, etc. It was never going to work from day one, but on paper, he was the world's best sales guy. Well, number 2 sales guy, right? It doesn't add up. So when we look only at, okay, well, this person hit a couple $1 million before in their previous job, cool. You don't understand all the circumstances. You don't understand, were they given a book of business? Were they supposed to grow it? Was that their team's revenue that they're saying is their revenue? You're going based on what a salesperson is communicating. And we all know that a decent salesperson can sell you on just about any line of BS possible.
Yep, for sure.
So what we ended up doing was essentially looking at what drives you. Like have you ever taken Myers-Briggs?
Sure.
Okay, cool. So the idea is, let's look at your personality, right? Well, I as a sales rep can change my personality. If I'm talking to you, a blunt former military guy, that's let's just get straight to the point, right? That's going to be different than the 25-year-old smoking pot at a tech company out in California, which is different than the New York stockbroker, right? I'm going to change how I approach every single one of you at least a little bit. I'm going to let my true color show, but I'm going to morph that. Personality is kind of cool, but it doesn't really help you in any way. What's behind personality? Behavior. What's behind behavior? Needs. What drives needs? It's drives, right? It's how you're wired. So if I can start to look at how is Wes actually wired, what drives you, what gets you up in the morning, what are the needs associated with that, I can essentially predict the behavior and personality that you're going to have in my group and compare it to the rest of the group.
Right.
That's kind of the gist of what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, like I say, past performance is no guarantee of future sales results, right?
It's on every financial waiver ever.
Yeah, but sales result, the salespeople, they should come with the same waiver, but people ignore it. Like, he was really good at this company. It's like, how you know they're going to be good at your company? I remember we had the same thing. I was working with a tech startup out of Austin. I had 18 Western states, man. And they hired this guy out of Denver to start carving up my territory. And he came from a big, big company. And, you know, I'm doing everything, man. I had an inside sales rep, but she was new and I had to share her with a couple other sales guys. So I didn't have her full time. So, you know, I'm making my own appointments. I'm booking flights. I'm doing my own demos because I couldn't get a systems engineer. You know, 3 weeks out, we can get there. Like, dude, I need somebody tomorrow, right? So I'm doing my own demos. Hell, I'm helping install the stuff when they buy it. This guy comes from this big company, and he lasted more than 6 weeks, but I don't think he lasted more than 6 months.
Sure.
You know, because he was just accustomed to having the support of a big company. I'm like, dude, this is a knife fight. right? It's like he's like artillery. He's 10 miles back, man. I'm like, dude, we're low crawling through the mud. It's like, you better get your hands dirty, brother, or you ain't gonna make it. He didn't make it.
So statistically, it's interesting. If you use behavioral interviewing, right, which is super helpful. Let's say you're really good. You have behavioral interviewing. You look at past job success, education, blah, blah, blah. Statistically, you have a 34% predictability in who you're going to bring on. Like that's awful, right? You have a 66% chance at knowing you are going to can this person, knowing that they're not going to work out. And even if they hit the bare minimum, are they really giving it their all? That's another conversation, right? How do you get the best out of your people? Good luck. What we're trying to do is use analytics. You're never going to hit 100%. You're never even going to hit 90%, right? But using analytics to figure out, look, based on the makeup of this individual, based on what we're trying to do, the balance of the team, et cetera, we need somebody like this. When you hear most people describe a job, they go through the job description bullet points. They never describe the person that should be in that job. Right, I think that's where most people fail. So look, I still do a ton of sales consulting, sales training, et cetera, a little bit of sales, tech automation, and optimization, et cetera. But at the end of the day, none of that freaking matters if you don't have the right team in place, which is where we merge tech and people, and you use tech to get the best out of your people, not tech to replace people, which is what most companies are trying to do.
Mm-hmm. So do you focus on a particular type of salesperson, or are you helping inside sales, outside sales, SDRs, complex sales, simple sales?
It's going to vary a little bit across the board, but higher ticket. It's typically not a $20, $30 SaaS type of deal. We're typically looking at enterprise SaaS, enterprise services. We're, for example, negotiating with a huge life sciences firm where they're selling a couple $100,000 deals, et cetera. Like it's really going to vary, but higher ticket is primarily where we focus.
Right. Very cool. All right, man. So where should we focus our listeners, huh? Where do we send them?
So qualigence.com. For those that aren't on here, it's QUALIGENCE.com. I head up our performance solutions division. If you click on that page on the website, you can get an ebook that explains a little bit further around how to use analytics to not only hire your team, but also get the best out of them, how to keep them inspired.
Right. So Michigan or Michigan State?
MSU, unfortunately, this past weekend. It didn't go well.
Hey, man, as long as you're loyal, it's all that matters, all right? No fair weather fans here.
I'm not a fair weather fan, just a losing fan.
I hear you, man. I've lived through some rough years, but I digress. We'll leave on a positive note, man. All right.
So don't bring up the Lions.
Yeah. Hey, I didn't bring them up, man. I was avoiding it, Just
no, I agree. Let's end on a good note. I appreciate you having me on, Wes.
All right, Steven, all the way from Detroit. Here, there, one of those spots, man.
Close enough.
Thanks for coming on the show, man. Have a great day.
You too.
Scripts versus frameworks. People buy when you connect with them. Prospects have a strong BS radar. Yes, they do. They always have. Humans always have. That's why I say nothing has changed in thousands of years with humans. Certainly hasn't changed in hundreds of years. Certainly hasn't changed in the last 30 or 40 or 50 years. People are hard to convince. If anything, they're harder to convince now. They're more untrusting of salespeople and pitches. But what hasn't changed is their ability to pick up on hype and BS. But what also hasn't changed is their desire to connect with someone. Humans, by our very nature, literally in our DNA, we're social beings. We want to connect with somebody. We want the underdog to win. Can you make yourself appear to be that underdog in the sales environment? Can you appear to be the underdog while also appearing to be a trusted, valuable resource to that prospect? So it's a balancing act. It can be done. I think it should be done. Okay, you want the prospect to want you to succeed. Okay, and it sounds crazy, but with Amazon and things like that, people are just so brutal, just squeezing every last penny out of someone because you're not differentiating yourself. If you are rude, if you are curt with people, if you're slow to reply, if you have poor grammar, it just all these different things, all these negatives add up. They're like, why should I do business with you? Whereas when you over-deliver, when you delight to the upside, right? A, B, C, D, E, attract, bond, convert, deliver a wow experience. When you do that, now people are singing your praises. They're willing to pay more because they like you. So what are you doing? How are you making that happen? Do you have the right people on board? That's what we talk about in the 30-day sales growth program. We talk about it because even though there's an 80-page workbook and dozens of videos and constant new content put in, I still take your questions live every week. So I can help you work on what's relevant and pertinent to you right then in the moment. And who else does that? And you have that ability, that access for an entire year. So come join 30daysalesgrowth.com. All right? And I guarantee you're going to sell more, faster, at higher margin, with less stress, and have more fun doing it. I'll go sell something.